We're thrilled to have you join our community of love, heartache, and life's twists and turns. Your subscription means the world to us, and we can't wait to bring you more captivating tales and stories. Stay tuned for emotional and inspiring chronicles that explore the complexities of the heart. I'm going through a really tough time right now, and it's all because of my wife's actions. To be honest, I'm feeling extremely hurt and betrayed by what she did. Let me explain the situation in more detail. A few days ago, I found out that my wife had remorselessly cheated on me and is now pregnant with her affair partner's baby. That alone is a heavy burden to bear, but what happened next added even more strain to our already fragile relationship. My kids, who are innocent bystanders in all of this, found a little bunny and brought it home. They were so excited and begged us to keep it. But the responsible thing to do was to return it to its natural habitat because we already have several pets, and it wouldn't be right to keep a wild rabbit. So I told my wife to take the money to a specific safe spot at the end of our property and release it there. I emphasize the importance of doing it that way due to the abundance of predators in our country area. However, she decided to disregard my advice completely. While I was busy with work, she took the bunny and let it go right in the middle of our yard. Can you believe it? She completely ignored my instructions and put the poor bunny in harm's way. Predictably, a hawk swooped down and took it away, causing unimaginable distress to my children. When my kids came back into the house, crying loudly and describing the bunny screams, I was utterly mortified. I was furious with my wife for not listening to me and for putting our kids through such a traumatic experience. She, on the other hand, defended her actions, callously dismissing it as just a bunny and claiming that the kids would get over it. But this was not just about a bunny. It was about her complete disregard for my instructions. Her inability to prioritize our children's emotional well-being and her stubborn refusal to admit she made a grave mistake. Our kids were so traumatized that they shut themselves in their rooms and stopped talking to their own mother for days. When she tried to talk to them, they called her the bunny killer. I've tried my best to mediate and ease the tension between my wife and our kids, but they are still deeply hurt and angry. And honestly, I can't blame them. I'm still furious at my wife for how she handled the situation. She's also upset with me for not backing her up, claiming that husbands and wives should always support each other. But the truth is, this isn't just about one incident. It's about a pattern of behavior where she hasn't had my back when it mattered in the past. We got into a heated argument where I pointed out numerous times when she failed to support me. She started crying and retreated to our room to sulk, leaving me to think about how she has consistently let me down. Our children were just 4 and 5 that day when they freaked out on their mother. It was a chaotic scene. They came running back to me in tears, calling her the bunny killer. That nickname stuck, and even other people started using it after her affair came to light. But in hindsight, what happened to that poor bunny seems like ancient history compared to what I have to reveal now. I'm speaking as a free man today, having recently finished the divorce process a couple of months ago. Brace yourself, this is a long and complicated story. I apologize for not making this clear sooner. But the P in my story stands for my former affair partner. My wife gave me the silent treatment for a week. I tried to intervene and make our kids stop mistreating their mother, even implementing small punishments like grounding and timeouts. But the bunny killer nickname resurfaced every time our kids got angry with her. Eventually, my wife ended her cold shoulder routine and admitted that she should have listened to me about the bunny incident. She said she felt the need to defend herself because she didn't want to be wrong. I accepted her apology and suggested we go to marriage counseling, but she refused. She acted as though everything was fine in our marriage, and I decided not to push the issue further, thinking things were improving. But a few weeks later, my eldest daughter came to me visibly upset. She said there was another reason why she was mad at her mother, something she had been keeping from me out of fear. I comforted her and assured her she could tell me anything. What she revealed shocked me to the core. She said that for months, Mama had been bringing a man over while we were separated. This revelation changed everything in an instant, and it left me with a sense of disbelief and betrayal. My wife had introduced our kids to this man as her special friend. She managed to keep our kids quiet about it through various means of bribery. But my eldest sensed that something was very wrong. Kids have a way of picking up on things quickly, and I've always believed in taking them seriously. It bothers me when people dismiss the things kids notice. I had also noticed that my wife had been acting differently lately. She had become shorter, tempered, especially with everyone, including the kids. I tried talking to her about it when I showed her my initial Reddit post, but it escalated into a heated argument. She went off on me, attacking everything from my appearance to my character and habits. She even brought up that I used to smoke, which I quit over 10 years ago. Then she locked me out of our bedroom and cried so loudly that you could hear it throughout the house. So when my eldest daughter came to me with her revelation, I couldn't help but put 22 together. It became evident that she was cheating, and her behavior had similarities to the mood swings she experienced during her pregnancies. Well, similar might be an understatement, because it was even worse this time, as I later discovered through online research and discussions with friends and a counselor. My wife's mood swings were likely a combination of hormonal changes and her guilt over infidelity. I'm no psychology expert, but it seemed to make sense. I desperately wanted it to be a misunderstanding, but I decided to set up a few hidden cameras just in case. I had them discreetly delivered to my workplace to avoid anyone at home discovering them. Then on a day when my wife had planned a girls' night out with her friends, I set them up around the house. They were easy to install and connect to the Wi-Fi. Within hours, I could monitor every part of the house from my home PC, laptop, and work PC. Initially, I worried that I might have been going overboard, and I hoped that could remove the cameras if it turned out I was wrong. However, my worst fears were confirmed within first week. The man my wife was having an affair with turned out to be a former colleague of hers. I remembered him well from various functions where he and my wife seemed close. My wife had quit her job years ago to become a full-time mom after our first child, and it had been a mutual decision at the time. She had stayed in touch with her former coworkers who were her best friends back then, but that was clearly no longer the case. What I'm about to share has caused my wife to be disliked by nearly everyone who knows about it. First and foremost, her affair partner is significantly younger than she is by about a decade. She had actually mentored him at her former job to fill her position when she left. And they had remained exceptionally close. Both my wife and I are over 40, but you'd never guess it by looking at her. She's absolutely stunning. Often mistaken for someone in their 20s, and it seems she took advantage of that. I eventually confided in my sister about what was happening and showed her the footage from the nanny cameras. She admitted that she had suspected something was off for a while. She even mentioned once seeing my wife at a local bar, getting a bit too close to a man who wasn't me, although they never kissed or did anything overtly inappropriate. There was just a lot of touching on the shoulders and lower back. She didn't tell me sooner because she wasn't entirely sure. To gather more evidence, I ordered a GPS tracker and hid it in the trunk of my wife's car. My sister and her husband agreed to help me and followed the tracker on my wife's next supposed night out with friends. Surprisingly, she went to a completely different place, 20 miles further away than her usual destination. From there, she met up with her affair partner. My sister and brother-in-law observed them from their car for a while and noticed the affair partner repeatedly rubbing her belly during their conversation. They recorded this as well. When I saw the footage, I couldn't deny the obvious conclusion that she must be pregnant with his baby. Given her mood swings at home, it was a devastating realization. My sister and brother-in-law had to calm me down because I was a complete mess. I initially thought about self-medicating with alcohol, but my sister wisely advised against it. I decided to take a leave from work, but told my wife that I was going on a business trip. She was oddly excited about it and didn't seem to mind that I'd be away for a while. This whole situation left me questioning everything about her. It felt as if someone who looked exactly like the woman I'd been married to for nearly 20 years had taken her place overnight. I began to wonder if she was an entirely different person or if I had ever truly known her. To make matters more manageable during this difficult time, I kept the cameras all over the house, and my sister and brother-in-law kindly agreed to take care of my kids for a few days since they loved visiting auntie and uncle in the city. My wife seemed to seize the exact opportunity she wanted. She called her affair partner only a few hours after I left for my supposed business trip, and he showed up at our house that evening to spend the night. I won't delve into explicit details about what they did around the house. You can probably fill in those blanks yourselves. But on top of everything, they openly mocked and joked about me continuously. They openly discussed their impending baby and the urgency to figure out what to do before her belly started showing. By then, she was already over 3 months pregnant, and there was no way to pass the child off as mine. Especially since her affair partner was of a different race. My wife brushed aside her affair partner's concerns and nonchalantly admitted that this wasn't even her first affair. She confessed to sleeping with another man when she was 29. She told her affair partner that she was tired of acting like a good housewife and being with a boring man like myself. She even went as far as saying that if it weren't for my financial stability, she would have left me long ago. When her affair partner inquired about her plans regarding our kids, her exact words were, "He can have them." She no longer wanted to be around our children because she believed they favored me, and she was eagerly awaiting her do-over baby. I was utterly disgusted as I watched this unfold on my laptop. I was staying in a motel room, and I very nearly threw the laptop on the floor out of sheer anger. But I managed to contain myself, had a few beers from a six-pack, grabbed dinner at a nearby diner, and watched a movie. Then I spent half the night lying in bed deep in thought until I finally fell asleep. I thought I knew my wife so well, and I loved her deeply. I would have given her everything I had to give. However, this revelation had shattered my perception of her. It made me realize that some people are just plain evil, and you can never truly know who they are until they reveal their true selves. That night, I made up my mind to go for the jugular and the divorce proceedings. Normally, I'm a kind and calm man, but when pushed to the brink, I can become someone's worst nightmare. The very next day, I visited a law firm specializing in divorce cases and asked for the meanest lawyer they had. I live in an at-fault state, so my wife was in deep trouble the moment I had her affair on camera. Initially, the lawyer was apprehensive about how quickly I wanted to hire him. However, when I explained my situation in more detail and even showed him some of the video footage, his expression changed. He got a devilish grin and said he'd start working on it right away because this was the kind of case divorce lawyers love to sink their teeth into. I had my wife served with divorce papers a few weeks later, choosing a day when I was working from home, and the kids were at school. The local sheriff delivered the papers right into our hands, and our cameras captured the entire scene. She looked visibly frightened as she opened the envelope, read the contents, and then seemingly lost her composure. Immediately after, she stormed into my home office, furious, and screaming at me. However, I remained cool and collected throughout the confrontation. By that point, I had mentally checked out of our marriage entirely. My wife wanted to argue, but I simply told her that I had made up my mind and I wanted her out of my house. I pointed out that I was the only one who had ever paid into the mortgage. She screamed back, insisting that I couldn't do this to her, even threatening to falsely claim that I had physically abused her in an attempt to get me fired from my job. I responded calmly, telling her to go ahead and make up any life she wanted, but it wouldn't help her case. I reminded her that she had planned on screwing me over since she was pregnant with her affair partner's baby anyway. Her eyes went wide, and she asked me how much I knew. My response was simple yet cryptic. I know enough. I repeated my demand that she leave the house, but she adamantly refused, asserting that it was as much her home as it was mine. She then locked herself in the bedroom. I watched through the bedroom cameras as she had a meltdown, followed by her pulling out her phone and calling the police. She was acting as if she were in a complete panic, but there was an unmistakable smile on her face while she made the call. She was quite the actress, and I would have believed that performance if I hadn't already known her to be a liar. I decided to wait for the police with the front door wide open and welcome them in when they arrived. They initially seemed prepared for a heated showdown, but they found the house in order with no signs of any physical altercation. My wife rushed out of the bedroom and grabbed the vest of one of the officers. While crying and accusing me of being a maniac, I calmly requested that one of the other officers allow me to show them the evidence of what was truly going on. Surprisingly, he agreed, which appeared to startle my wife, as she was unaware that I had recorded her actions. I showed the officer the footage from the cameras on a laptop, including the video of my wife saying she'd make things up to ruin my life. Then I displayed the footage from the living room after she ran out of my office and into the master bedroom down the hall. Finally, I showed the footage from the camera in the bedroom of her calling the police and lying about me. It was all recorded from multiple angles. Even though my wife claimed to the police that I had hit her, there were no marks on her, and the cameras throughout the house told a completely different story. I handed the police a thumb drive containing all the video footage. They needed to see that my wife had called them under false pretenses. My wife, even in the face of all this evidence, stuck to her false accusation of abuse and even tried to claim that the recordings were illegal and inadmissible. I pointed out that the recordings were legal because they were made by security cameras inside my own home, not in a public place. My wife looked to the police and urged them to do something. So they did. They handcuffed her, and she began crying uncontrollably. It was a surreal and disheartening moment for me. This was the woman I had loved for so many years. The person I thought was wonderful, intelligent, and endearing. I couldn't have been more wrong. As the police took her away, she screamed that they couldn't do this to her, but didn't put up much of a fight, perhaps to avoid an additional charge of resisting arrest. I then took immediate action to shut down all her credit cards that were in my name and stopped any future payments into our joint bank account, leaving her to rely entirely on her own money to bail herself out of jail. She had saved plenty during all those years. She was still working while the mortgage was in my name, so she was far from broke. When she came back for her car, which was in my name, I had packed a few of her suitcases with clothes and some of her belongings and left the key on the seat. This made it clear she couldn't enter the house again. My wife's parents came to speak to me a day after she bailed herself out of jail. At first, they only had her distorted version of events, which was essentially the same story she had tried to tell the police. Her father particularly seemed ready to confront me. However, when I asked him if he knew anything about her affair or her pregnancy, he looked quite surprised and gave me the chance to explain. I pulled out the laptop once again to show my in-laws what I had recorded. When they found out the truth, they were disgusted and said they couldn't believe that this person was their daughter. They apologized to me and said they would keep in touch to help out with my kids. They decided to call my wife on speaker right in front of me and confront her about her lies. When my wife tried to double down on her lies in front of her parents, they told her that they were with me and had seen the recordings, knowing everything that had transpired. They made it clear they wanted her out of their house immediately. She attempted to backpedal, but my in-laws were firm in their stance. They told her that they had not raised her to be a selfish, adulterous individual who would try to frame her own husband. They disowned her over the phone right then, and they're hanging up before my wife could say anything else. She tried calling them back, but they ignored every attempt. When they returned home, they found not only that she was gone, but that she had also destroyed several things around their house, which left my mother-in-law in tears. Despite everything, I still consider my ex's parents to be my in-laws because they continued to drop by from time to time to see their grandchildren. However, my ex-wife effectively became dead to us all. Later, my wife returned with her affair partner to pack her remaining belongings. The affair partner wouldn't even enter the house, and my wife refused to speak a word to me while gathering her things. She was well aware of the security cameras scattered throughout the house, and any further misconduct on her part would only have further condemned her. I wasn't alone during this ordeal. My sister and brother-in-law were present to help keep an eye on her. My brother-in-law made sure to eye her affair partner from a distance. My wife continued to pack even when the kids arrived home, and she made no effort to speak to either of them, not even when our youngest cried for her. Before leaving, she grabbed a few photos of us from our wedding that were hanging on the wall and threw them on the floor, breaking them. I believe she expected a reaction from me, judging by the way she looked at me during the act. However, I chose not to respond, and she gathered her last bags and walked out the door. Once she was gone, I had to call my elderly mother to come stay with me for a while because I couldn't take care of my kids alone. I couldn't take much time off work and daycare options were limited. Additionally, I ordered DNA tests for my kids, just to be sure, even though I was confident they were mine. Several people had suggested it, and I thought it was a wise precaution. I had to know for certain, so I arranged for DNA tests. And, thankfully, both of my children were confirmed to be mine. I also got tested for STIs, and I was clean, so there were no worries in that regard. About a week later, my wife showed up at my door, suggesting that she would agree to a clean divorce if I did as well, meaning she would have received half of everything if I had agreed. However, I firmly declined her proposal. There was some back-and-forth arguing during which she more or less admitted that she had found out that the law in our state was not on her side. We had met, gotten engaged, got married, and lived our entire lives in this state. So there was no way she could avoid taking a significant loss unless I agreed to a settlement, which I did not. I told her that she had betrayed me, our kids, her parents, and practically everyone, by having an affair. Then I slammed the door in her face, and she left quietly. I didn't see her again until we met him divorce court a few months later. By that time, she was visibly quite pregnant, and she had obtained a lawyer. Her affair partner was nowhere to be seen. I had expected her to lie to the judge, which she attempted to do a few times. However, I had enough video evidence to refute any lies, so she didn't stand a chance in that regard. Instead, she tried to drag out the divorce by refusing to cooperate and making various demands. She wanted most of my savings among other things and insisted that I buy out her half of the house even though she had never contributed to it. On my end, I was pushing for full custody of the kids and to remove her name from the house deed. I had the video evidence to back up her statements about not really caring for our children anymore and her willingness to make up lies. My wife attempted to stall and repeatedly changed her demands, but the judge didn't allow her to keep dragging things out. Given that we were in an at-fault state and she was the adulterer, her attempts to frame me only made her case worse. In the end, she lost all custody of our kids and walked away with nothing more than her personal belongings. Considering the circumstances of my divorce, I believe the financial settlement was fair given the laws and evidence involved. Here are some key points. Property division. The house, which was entirely in my name, remained mine in the divorce settlement. However, the car I had bought for my ex-wife, even though the title was in my name, was considered marital property because it was acquired during our marriage. As part of the settlement, I transferred the title to her and she received the car. Alimony and support. My ex-wife received a relatively small financial payout, which amounted to $60,000. This amount was determined based on various factors including the duration of our marriage and her financial needs. Child custody. I was granted full custody of our children as my ex-wife's behavior and statements, especially the video evidence of her admitting not caring about the children, played a significant role in the judge's decision. She willingly relinquished all rights to our kids and did not pursue any custody arrangement. It's worth noting that the legal process can vary depending on the jurisdiction, and the outcome of divorce cases depends on many factors, including the specific details of each case. In my situation, the evidence I had, combined with the laws in our at-fault state, played a crucial role in the settlement. For those wondering about the police involvement, I can attest that the police in my area take false accusations seriously. My ex-wife's attempt to frame me as a wife beater led to her arrest, as making false accusations can have serious consequences. In the end, while the divorce was a challenging and painful process, I am now free from the turmoil and deceit of my past marriage and focused on moving forward with my life. As time passed, I focused on rebuilding my life and providing a stable and loving environment for my children. Having full custody allowed me to bond with them more deeply, and we made many cherished memories together. With the support of my extended family and newfound friendships, we created a close-knit and supportive network. I also decided to invest some of my time in personal growth. I explored new hobbies, rediscovered old passions, and even took some classes to enhance my skills. This journey of self-discovery not only boosted my confidence, but also led me to meet someone truly remarkable. In a surprising turn of events, I crossed paths with someone who shared my interests, values, and a deep respect for family. We fell in love, and together, we blended our lives and created a warm and loving home for my children. My new partner embraced my kids as their own, and we became a loving and united family. Over time, my ex-wife's actions and deceit began to feel like a distant memory, and forgiveness became an essential part of my healing process. I wish her well in her new life, and hope that she would find happiness and fulfillment. As the years went by, my children thrived in their new family structure surrounded by love and support. We celebrated milestones, faced challenges together, and learned valuable life lessons. Despite the initial turmoil, our journey led us to a place of happiness, love, and contentment, proving that even after the darkest storms, there can be a bright and promising rainbow on the other side. Dear listener, if you have reached thus far, please consider subscribing our channel, as it helps and motivates us to continue our work.